This morning, America's First News starts right after this. Great news. There's a quick way you could save money. Switch to Geico. Geico could help you get great coverage at a great price, and it only takes 15 minutes to see if you could save 15% or more on car insurance. Go to geico.com today and see how much you could save.
From Compass Media Networks, this is America's First News. This morning, with your host, Gordon Deal.
Democrats present their case. Good morning. Jennifer Kashinka in for Gordon Deal, along with Rossa Kay on this Thursday, January 23rd. Here's what we have for you this hour.
House impeachment managers allege President Trump interfered in the 2020 election by pressing Ukraine to investigate Joe Biden and that his actions are a threat to national security.
China locks down the city at the center of the virus outbreak.
3 American crew are killed as a firefighting plane crashes in Australia.
And if it only snows every 100 years, how do you save that snow?
You know, people hung on to these snowballs as sort of a memento, a memory of a really special day, and what for a lot of people was the first time they had ever seen snow in their lives, and the last time that they expected that they would.
Elizabeth Findell of the Wall Street Journal has the story of 15-year-old snowballs in the freezer in Texas. She'll be here in about 20 minutes with that story. House Democrats argued that President Trump's efforts to press Ukraine to launch investigations that could help him politically warranted his removal from office, saying during the first day of opening arguments in the impeachment trial that his actions undercut U.S. elections and national security. Congressman Adam Schiff, the lead impeachment manager and chairman of the House Intelligence Committee, laid out the allegations underpinning the 2 articles of impeachment passed by the House last month. The first stems from Trump pressing Ukraine to investigate Joe Biden. The second accuses Trump of impeding Congress's investigation by blocking some witnesses and documents.
The documents and testimony that we were able to collect paints an overwhelming and damning picture of the president's efforts to use the powers of his office to corruptly solicit foreign help in his reelection campaign.
Trump's legal team argues Democrats don't have a strong case. Speaking yesterday at the World Economic Forum in Davos, Trump reiterated his familiar refrain.
It's a disgrace. They talked about their tremendous case, and it's all done, their tremendous case. They had no case. It's all a hoax.
Democrats still hope to win over at least 4 Republican votes to seek subpoenas later in the trial, which resumes this afternoon. As House Democratic prosecutors and the White House defense team begin litigating charges of abuse of power and obstruction of Congress, Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell has seemingly lined up all members of his party to support President Trump. Joining us now to go more in-depth on the possible outcome is David Drucker of the Washington Examiner. David, are we going to see anything other than a party line vote?
Well, it's going to be a party line vote. I think the only question, and I mean, it's still, an unknown, is will any Republicans break ranks and vote to convict and remove the president from office? There are 2 charges that they're going to hear, abuse of power and obstruction of Congress. I'm very doubtful you get any Republican votes for obstruction of Congress. The more serious charge, I think that, as they will look at it, will be abuse of power. And that's where they're going to hear a lot of evidence regarding the president's dealings with Ukraine and its president, Vladimir Zelensky. And I still think at the end of the day that there are only 4 potential votes in terms of how many Republicans could turn against the president. But I tend to think that the odds of them doing so are pretty low.
Now, of course, the anti-Trump contingent will tout recent new revelations about White House dealings with Ukraine and will say this is just Republicans being good soldiers for the guy in the White House, whether they really believe he should be acquitted or not. Is that the case?
Well, it is in part the case. I think what's important to understand here is that Republican voters, the voters that they need to renominate them, reelect them, they haven't turned against the president. And so I think there's a larger issue here. It's not just loyalty to Trump, it's fear of their own voters. And have Republican voters ever decided that what the president did was wrong, and had we seen considerable movement in the polls that showed Republican voters weren't happy about it and might be open to impeachment and removal, I think you would have seen, much different outcome in terms of how Republicans voted on this in the House and how they've been approaching this in the Senate. Obviously, anything can change. There's always a new piece of information that could turn up, or they could look at this, with a fresh lens as the lawyers make their arguments. But, I've been talking to Republicans now since the beginning. I've never seen them that impressed by the case the Democrats have been making, which stands in contrast to the other Trump controversies during his, 3 years in office so far, where I saw them freak out all the time. And I just never saw it with impeachment. But on top of that, again, the larger issue is Republican voters are okay with Trump. And as long as that's the case, Republicans in Congress are going to be okay with Trump.
What does all this say about Mitch McConnell and his power within the party?
Well, look, I think what McConnell has done a good job of is explaining to Republicans in his conference in the Senate the ins and outs of impeachment, how it would work, what they should expect. I think that he did a good job of convincing most of them that calling witnesses was probably not a very useful exercise, that they were much better off concluding the trial sooner rather than later. I think that he did a good job of explaining to the White House and the president that the best thing for him and for the Republican Party generally was not to have a trial that stretched over several weeks or months, that, even though it might be gratifying to try and hear from some witnesses, it was too politically unpredictable and it was unnecessary to take risks when, as things stand now, based on everything that the public has heard, the public is split on impeachment. But the president is no worse off, and his party is no worse off in terms of his approval ratings than he was at the beginning of this whole thing. So why take a chance and ruin all of that when you never know what a witness is going to say, what new information is going to come to light.
Thanks, David. David Drucker of the Washington Examiner. A violent altercation that escalated into gunfire in downtown Seattle has left one woman dead and 7 other bystanders wounded outside a fast food restaurant. The precise circumstances of the shooting, what precipitated the bloodshed, and the number of people involved remain murky hours after the incident, which unfolded in a busy shopping district during the evening rush hour. Seattle Police Chief Carmen Best says the violence was not a random incident and grew out of a dispute in front of a McDonald's restaurant.
We had a lot of officers already nearby. We responded immediately. We discovered victims at the scene in about a 1-block radius or so.
Witnesses say 2 men were seen arguing on the street before pulling guns on each other and opening fire as pedestrians around them scattered for cover. A fire department spokesman described the lone fatality as a woman about 40 to 50 years of age who was found dead at the scene. 7 other victims were brought to Harborview Medical Center. One of those patients was a woman in her 50s who was listed in critical condition. Another was a 9-year-old boy in serious condition.
Let me tell you about my new favorite way to pass the time while commuting. It's the app called Blinkist. Blinkist works on your phone, your tablet, or your web browser. Blinkist takes the need-to-know information from thousands of nonfiction books and whittles it down to just 15 minutes. Successful people like business leaders are well known for reading self-improvement books. I just finished listening to Snowball, a Warren Buffett biography. Listen to Blinkist while commuting or maybe exercising, even while you're waiting for your kids to finish practice. Blinkist has the latest titles from bestseller lists as well as the classic nonfiction titles you always meant to read. I also like listening to some of the history titles since I never had much good history in school. Right now, for a limited time, Blinkist has a special offer just for our audience. Go to Blinkist.com/morning to try it free for 7 days and save 25% off your new subscription. That's Blinkist, spelled Blinkist, Blinkist.com/morning to start your free 7-day trial. You'll also save 25%, but only when you sign up at Blinkist.com/morning.
Jennifer Kashinka in for Gordon Deal along with Ross Akay. There are more ways than ever to connect to America's First News on the go. Download the This Morning with Gordon Deal app from the Apple or Google App Store and tell Alexa, Google, or Siri to play This Morning with Gordon Deal. 3 American crew helping to battle Australia's devastating bushfires were killed today when their water-bombing plane crashed in mountainous terrain during a run to tackle another outbreak of the deadly blazes. The Hercules C-130 plane erupted in a large fireball on impact in a national park in the snowy mountains. The cause of the crash was not immediately known, but New South Wales Rural Fire Service Commissioner Shane Fitzsimmons says high winds were making flying the water tankers very difficult.
Our thoughts and prayers are with the 3 occupants who routinely crew that specialised aircraft.
The highly experienced U.S. firefighting trio was working for Canadian firm Coulson Aviation, which had been contracted to help fight the fires. The incident brings the death toll in Australia's bushfires to at least 32 since the crisis began in September. This portion of the program is brought to you by Harry's. Now that the gift-giving season is over, what season is it? It's New Year's resolution season, and if managing your finances better is one of yours, our friends at Harry's have an awesome deal for you. Buying razors adds up, but at $2 a cartridge, Harry's customers save money all year long. And we're talking award-winning razors, a whole range of grooming essentials to keep you in top shape, plus 100% quality guarantee. If you don't love your shave, let them know, and they'll give you a full refund. Here's a special offer for listeners of our show. New customers get $5 off a trial set from Harry's with code DEAL. That's DEAL at harrys.com. That means you can get a razor, weighted handle, foaming shave gel, and travel cover, all for just $3, plus free shipping when you use code DEAL at harrys.com. Join the millions of guys who have already switched and go to harrys.com today, and remember to use code DEAL at checkout to claim your offer. It's 20 minutes after the hour. Rasa Kay is here with 3 big things you need to know.
Well, Jen, House managers began presenting their opening arguments in the impeachment trial of President Trump. California Congressman Adam Schiff called on senators to act as impartial jurors.
The House believes that an impartial juror, upon hearing the evidence that the managers will lay out in the coming days, will find that the Constitution demands the removal of Donald J. Trump from his office as President of the United States.
Many of the chamber's 53 Republicans didn't even bother to stick around for long stretches of the proceedings, even though trial guidelines specify senators must be in attendance at all times. 2, anxiety is growing in China as travel bans spread. Wuhan went into lockdown in an effort to control the spread of the new coronavirus that has left 17 dead, with authorities suspending planes, trains, buses, subways, and ferries in and out of the city of 11 million people. Travel bans have now been enacted to the central China cities of Huanggang and Aizhou as well. Number 3, in an opening statement lasting over an hour, New York prosecutor Megan Hast delivered an at times shocking account of Hollywood mogul Harvey Weinstein's alleged attacks on 6 women who will testify at his trial in Manhattan. She says they were groomed before Weinstein assaulted them, most of them unknown and vulnerable women who accepted his advances in the hope of an acting break. Speaking in Davos at the World Economic Forum, President Trump wasn't overly concerned about brain injuries suffered by 11 U.S. service members in Iran's recent attack on a base in Iraq.
I heard that they had headaches and a couple of other things, but I would say, and I can report, it is not very serious.
The military, meanwhile, has moved those soldiers to Germany for medical evaluations, with several suffering concussion symptoms. GlaxoSmithKline's pulled 2 of its popular painkillers and temporarily suspended their production after finding irregularities at the plants that make them. Excedrin Extra Strength and Excedrin Migraine are off the shelves for now. As a precaution, the company believes the product does not pose a safety risk. No indication you should toss it if you have it. Gritty's being investigated on allegations of assault on a 13-year-old fan. The incident happened during a November photo shoot with the Flyers hockey team mascot. The boy's dad says his son patted the 7-foot furry orange creature on the head and got punched in the back in return. The Flyers organization says their investigation found nothing to support the claim.
I don't believe it, and I love your description of the 7-foot furry orange creature. Perfect.
What can we call it, really?
That's what he is. Thanks, Rasa. On Christmas Day in 2004, snow fell in Texas's Rio Grande Valley for the first time in 109 years. Today, some people are still trying to hold on to that very same snow. Elizabeth Findell of the Wall Street Journal has talked to some of those folks and joins us now. Elizabeth, what were these residents doing with the snow?
You know, people hung on to these snowballs as sort of a memento, memory of a really special day and what for a lot of people was the first time they had ever seen snow in their lives and, the last time that they expected that they would.
Reading your story, it sounds like people in areas where snow rarely falls, they do this often. I never really thought to keep the snow, but it seems like a lot of people did it.